So, hey, Nick, thanks for joining me today. Really happy that we're going to be able to do this. I'm not cutting this out, by the way.
Okay, all right. You're going to cut out the previous 4 minutes, but not this one. Okay. The magic of editing. Dude.
No, we're all raw from here. We're all raw from here.
You're probably a pro editor at this point, all the videos you've made.
So why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah. So I'm Nick or Nicholas. I go by Nitbean on the internet. And I've been age-editing since 2015, early 2015, beginning 2015. So about three-year mark this New Year's, and Matt is my senpai. So I'm very honored that you decided to interview me. Thank you very much.
Awesome. No, my pleasure. Great to have you on. So why don't you just give us a rundown on your age-at learning journey so far? Oops, sorry, all Japanese learning journey. Fuck, I'm tired.
Yeah. Sorry. You're gonna edit that one out too?
Okay, maybe we should just restart that. I feel this is two things.
No. You don't get to edit that out.
Okay.
Your patrons get to see the real you.
Okay.
As Caps would say, Ari no mama.
Okay, Ari no mama. Here we go. Why don't you tell us about your age-adding Japanese age-adding journey?
So I've always wanted to learn another language since I was little. It was sort of in the back of my mind because basically your language is how you kind of live your life. You live your life through language, and through meditation you realize that's all kind of an illusion. But that's not the point. The point is that I thought it was really cool because that's like a whole nother you almost. The whole language. It's like almost like a whole nother brain that comes with the language. So I was always in the back of my mind, but I never really knew which language to choose until there was the summer of 2014 where I ran across this a video for like a visual novel. I didn't know what visual novels were at the time, and it looked really interesting because there was no other games like that in the West. And so I looked up what visual novels were and like how to play them. And there's this whole like translation aggregator thing that like to translate the visual novels, but it really sucked and it was a pain in the ass. So I'm just like, well, now's a good time to learn Japanese in my head. It was sort of like a small start, but I was like, let's learn Japanese. So fast forward to Christmas of 2014, and I stumbled across AJAT, and I was like, this site seems really fishy, and it was.
And you hadn't really done any Japanese learning at this point?
No, I hadn't. I'd basically, because I was busy with school, I'd been looking for sources, like a good method to learn, because I didn't want to just start and then, I didn't want to start and quit. So I was looking for a method that I feel like I could really stick with.
Okay, and you were wise.
And which is good because if you look up just like Japanese learning, Rosetta Stone and Japanese Podcast 101 will come up, and as you know, those all suck. So I found AJAT, and I read the site, but before I finished reading the site, I actually went to Antimoon, which is where he got his ideas. Cats basically got from Crashin and Antimoon, kind of combined the ideas into AJAT. And I looked at Crashin's research and Antimoon's site, and the Antimoon site was the biggest, I think, proof for me that this really worked, because their site's entirely in English, and it's flawless. It's probably better than my English, to be quite honest. And they're non-native. So I'm like, well, I know for a fact that this works for these people, and it works for Cats, because I saw Cats' video talking with his Japanese friend, and then combine that with Crashin's research that we all learn languages fundamentally the same way, which makes sense from an evolutionary standpoint. This seems pretty believable. So I read through Cats' entire site in a couple days. It was Christmas break, so I really didn't have much to do. But the problem is that this was right around the time when he was really pushing NCDs. So in the beginning of 2015, there was also an article on there, or not an article, but like you could enter your email address and he would send you it was like the first part of the MCD tutorial. So
yeah.
The biggest part of his site that I found different than other Japanese learning methods was the immersion. Like the immersion was number one, and he even talked about like taking SRS in holidays, like taking a break from studying to just immerse. So I thought this is believable. Like I can try this out. It sounds fun. So in my mind, like using Anki was not the biggest important thing. The most important thing was immersing. And so I kind of started with MCDs. I didn't even do RTK because in the article he sent to your mail, it said, you'll learn the kanji just through doing MCDs. So I'm like, okay. I learned hiragana, katakana, and then I learned Taikim's Guide to Japanese Grammar, which served as my basis. And then after that, I just did MCDs, which were kind of nice in the beginning because they turn everything into I+1. But as I got to
Wait, so at this point, what did your MCDs really look like? So what were you using to immerse, and how did you create these cards?
Basically, I used Firefox has an add-on called Rikai-chan.
Yeah.
And if you highlight a word, it basically parses for you. And so if you highlight a word, it'll tell you what the word's reading and then the meaning. And so I went to Gigazyne and these different articles, these basic sites, and I just kind of took a whole paragraph, copied and pasted it on the front of the Anki card, and then blocked out one kanji. And then I did that for every single word. And I did it for hiragana words too. I did it for every single word in the entire paragraph. And so I was able to turn paragraphs where I knew 0 words into 40 cards. And I basically just did that for a couple of months, which wasn't bad because it's real native Japanese, but it's really boring. And
did you find that it was helping you learn?
Yes,
did
actually,
it become comprehensible?
It did become comprehensible, but the problem arises with MCDs when you get later, when the cards get matured, because at that point what happens is you stop learning the words that you closed, and you start kind of remembering it's kind of you remember the card, you don't remember the word, and so that
you stop
kind of
needing the context, and it becomes just rote memorization.
Yeah, and so you don't really it was helpful in the beginning for learning words, and obviously I had a base with Taikim's Guide to Japanese Grammar. I learned all the vocab in that, and I learned all the grammar points in that, which was very helpful. So I was able to understand part of the articles, but I realized about 6 months into MCDs, I'd say, so around June of 2015, that these things they just weren't for me, and so I decided to switch to regular sentences. But I didn't delete my MCD cards. I just kind of kept them. I think I had 1,500 of them, maybe 2,000 of them, because they're really easy to make because of how easy the Kai-chan is to use. So I just had 2,000 MCD cards. And I think that would probably equate to 1,000 or maybe 800 sentences, maybe.
Okay.
And so then I went out from middle of 2015, and I guess my audio immersion was YouTube videos of just talking, playing Mario Kart, because it was simple, it was comprehensible and sort of entertaining at that point. And then anime, and I found one radio show called Oodori, the Old Night Nippon, which is a huge recommendation. I didn't understand any of it at this point, but I thought his voice sounded cool, so I just decided to listen to it. And I've been listening to that since mid 2015.
So at this period, how many hours a day would you say you were immersing, and what percentage of that was really active and what percentage was more passive?
At this point in 2015, it was the summer, so pretty much all day, every day was immersing. Occasionally, I'd immerse, and then, for 2 hours a day, I'd go out and play with my friends, or go hang out with my friends and go do something. But if I had free time, at my house, unless I was talking with my parents or doing something running an errand, then it was pretty much all Japanese. And I'd say I spent an hour and a half total combined studying and making cards per day, and the rest of it was immersion.
So you had no struggles being tempted to do English stuff or anything?
Oh, fuck, I had so many struggles. The biggest struggle was playing video games. That had nothing to do with Japanese. Because a lot of the video games I played didn't have text, not enough text to warrant being a good immersion source. And so I wanted to play those. I wanted to play Mario Kart really badly because I loved Mario Kart. Doing the time trials, getting world record times and stuff. And I also liked playing Magic the Gathering with my friends. So I kind of had to push my friends away for a little bit. And one of them kind of got worried about me, and he kind of talked to me. He was bro, you can't just push us away for Japanese. I'm but it's really important to me, and we kind of talked about it, and he kind of understood and kind of let me do my thing for the next couple of years, which is really nice of him. But so the biggest thing I'd say was as friends. Friends with the temptation to go hang out with them because I really liked all my friends, but kind of said no.
But it sounds like just you had your priorities set and you knew what you wanted to do.
But I will say that in my last year of high school, which is 2016, because I started in 2015, I graduated in 2016 from high school, and I will say that during that last year, I did sacrifice sometimes immersing to hang out with some of my friends, and it's a balance. Like, if you're doing it every single day, it's bad, but like once every couple of weeks, just like taking a night to go hang out with your friends I think it's worth it, because at the end of the day, your friends are important, and you know, people, like I love people around me. Like, I love my friends; they're important to me. So I can't just completely force them all out 100% of the time. And in the grand scheme of things, like one day every couple of weeks, and not even that didn't even continue because I graduated high school soon after, is not going to make too big of a dent in your Japanese.
Yeah.
But you have to, it's a really slippery slope. You have to be very careful.
As long as it actually is one day every once in a while.
Yes. You have to be very, very
As long
careful.
as every day isn't that one day. Yeah.
Yes. So then, beginning 2016, I started monolingual sentences. And this was, the monolingual transition for me was actually kind of not as hard as I think people make it out to be. You got to choose good sentences first. Get those I+1 sentences, or maybe I+2. Look up the words, and then you just keep going. I could only make like 2 or 3 ones a day in the beginning because I had to keep looking up all the words and the definitions.
How many layers deep would you have to go when you're doing the recursive lookups?
Like 4 or 5, and then...
And what dictionary were you using?
I used Weblio.
Just that one?
Just that one, yes. I used Goo sometimes, too. If I really didn't understand the definition in Weblio, like, because Weblio uses harder definitions, I think, than all the other ones on the internet, usually, because I think it uses Daijin.
Yeah.
Goo uses a simpler one. And sometimes I'd use Samseto, but not very often.
You went cold turkey?
Yeah, I did cold turkey, but to compensate for that, whenever I had my like reading time, my reading immersion, in the beginning I just did like web articles and newspaper articles, and occasionally I bought some books. But now for my reading, whenever I had reading time immersion, I would just read the monolingual dictionary, which is actually it's an idea I got from Antimoon, because Antimoon says that there's like an article they have in there where the guy talks about like, hey, I just read the English dictionary like for an hour every night, and I'm like, well, that sounds like a good idea. And in the beginning, like, you're a noob, so you don't know anything, and it's actually kind of fun to learn the language in the language.
Yeah, totally.
Recursive learning. So like just reading the monolingual dictionary was fun. I just have like 20 tabs open and just continually just reading the monolingual dictionary, not even adding anything to Anki. But what it did is it got my brain used to the way that Japanese describes itself. And so I think it really made a big difference. Like I read like an hour and a half every day, like read the monolingual dictionary actively. And I think that really helped make the transition smooth. Cool. That's something I really would recommend to people. If they're really having struggle going monolingual, you can just do like 30 minutes. Just take a word you already know. For example, like making it a verb is usually easier because nouns are sometimes harder to define. Like taberu, and you just look that up, and then you already know what it is, and then you just go from that definition, and just you can scatter, and you can go so far. I think that's really helpful. And so then in mid 2016 is a big mark, because that's when I discover you and Patrick.
How'd you discover us?
I don't know if you remember this, but I did the AJAT fuck up where I did an output. I did an output. I'm sorry. I tweeted something, and I felt this. I'm like, this tweet sounds wrong, but I'm too lazy to change it. So I just tweeted it, and Patrick actually called me out on it.
Wait, were you tweeting at us, or were you just tweeting out and we just found you?
I tweeted at you. I said, like, I was basically trying to ask if it's a good idea to listen to Japanese while you sleep, and I'm like,
I vaguely remember this.
I'm like, jama ni naru rashi.
Oh, yeah, I remember. Yeah, you sucked back then.
And it was so bad. I cringed myself, and I'd never outputted before that. For whatever reason, I was just like, I want to output just like once, and that's the only time I did it outside of my first like real output, which I'll talk about later.
So how much were you understanding at this point?
At this point, I was understanding probably like 80. It's a year and a half in, so like 80% of my media, 80%.
And so you had this was your first kind of outputting experience, and
Yeah.
did you have any anxiety that you weren't fluent yet, even though Kat said you would be fluent in 18 months?
I remember I Skyped with you once, like after that, after Patrick called me out, and I asked, like, were you fluent in 1.5 years? And you're like, oh, hell no, I wasn't even close to that level. And Patrick said the same thing. So I just assumed that Kat sort of embellished his story a little bit.
Yeah.
Which is fine, because I still believe, I saw the results of AJAT.
Yeah.
Work, but he did embellish a little bit, and so I didn't really care that much. I don't know.
Did you kind of have the experience of you were making enough progress where you could see how the kind of mechanism worked firsthand, so you didn't need anyone else to kind of justify or verify?
Yeah, no, I didn't.
That it worked.
I kind of not proved it, but made sure it worked by reading Antimoon. Like, that just really did it for me personally. And Antimoon, and then watching Katz's video was really and Krashen's research was really all I needed to prove.
Nice. So you were on no timeline or anything.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Sorry to interrupt.
I'm a little upset that I started with MCDs, but
yeah. And you had done no real kanji work at this point, right?
No,
you were just
no. This is important, because after I talked to you and Patrick, both of you were like, "So have you done RTK?" And I realized that I had gone monolingual without doing RTK, and this was a huge problem because I couldn't write anything really, and my reading speed was slow. So I decided to do like 10 sentences a day, and then starting September, 10 sentences a day, and do like 25 kanji. And so I finished RTK that semester of college. At this point, I think I was at like 3,500 sentences total.
And how did you make your kanji cards?
I had the story, or the keyword, and then the story on the front, and then the kanji on the back. I put the story on the front. That's what Katz did, and that's what I did as well. If I didn't I only looked at the story if I had to, and if I did that and then still wrote it, I gave it a hard value, not a wrong one.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
Yeah. I only looked at the story if you need to. So it's pretty simple.
And you wrote them out each time when you were reviewing?
Yes. That's key. Write them out, please. Do not draw them in the air with your fingers. Do not see them in your mind. Fucking write them on paper. Yes, I'm talking to you. One of your patrons is like, but do I have to write it on paper? Yes, you do.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
Otherwise, there's no point.
Yes. And so, at this point, combined with my 2,000 MCD cards and like 3,500 to 4,000, I don't remember, sentences, and I had a decent grasp of the base of the language heading into 2017. And then I accidentally deleted my Anki deck, my sentences deck. So this is embarrassing. And I accidentally deleted it and then accidentally synced that.
And so this was your kanji and everything?
No, not kanji, just sentences and MCDs.
Okay.
My kanji is fine. My kanji is just fine. But my sentences and MCDs got lost.
That sucks.
And yeah, it was really bad. I kind of had like a mental breakdown. I was like, that's like 6,000 sentences.
I probably would have just seppuku'd if that were me.
It was 6,000 sentences, and that's a huge base. And so I was like, basically in my mind, there's two options. One, I could just be upset and give up, or two, I could just say, well, this is even more of a reason that I need to double down on my immersion to make up for
that's true.
the fact. So I just decided to double down on my immersion and continue making sentences through 2017. I do feel like that deleting those 6,000 sentences, or like 5,500, 6,000 sentences, did set me back. Because there's sometimes like I come across a word, I'm like, I know this is in my deleted deck, so I have to look it up again. I just looked it up, but I didn't add it again unless it was a sentence I really wanted to add. And occasionally I'd add sentences where I knew all the words because they were sentences similar to the one that I had in my other deck. That's my way of kind of like making up for. But I think doubling down on my immersion really helped. And the words I studied in my other deck will come up in other sentences. So it's not like it was a,
Do you ever wonder if maybe it was a good thing in the end? Because if you wouldn't have lost your deck, you wouldn't have immersed as much, and maybe in the end.
Possibly, yeah. Like I mean, I wasn't ever slacking in my immersion too terribly much, like, but I do think that was an extra motivator for me to like, okay, now I have no deck to fall back on, like in case like my immersion flips, so I need to immerse, otherwise, shit's gonna hit the fan, you know?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
not- So, and if there's one thing you could take away from this, like talking to your patrons, is that Anki's not the important part of AJAT. Like right now, I have 4,400 cards in my sentence deck, because like all from 2017, and the reason that my Japanese doesn't suck is because I just immersed the entire time and made 100% sure that as much as possible Japanese is entering my ears, and I was really trying to understand it. It's really, really, really important. So yeah, even if your Anki deck gets deleted, you can still do it. This is probably the most dirty like AJAT journey ever. I started with MCGs and my sentence deck got deleted, but the fact that input was like the entire time just there, it was the safety net basically that made sure that I didn't die. So
I think it's beautiful.
Thank you.
I think there's a lot we can learn from this.
Yeah.
That it's like the key is to just keep immersing.
Yeah, the key
don't try to get caught up in finding the perfect resources and the perfect Anki deck and all that shit.
Yes, that's not the important part. And I guess right now, the 2018 year 4, heading to year 4, I started kind of to get into like the what Patrick talked about in his interview, where I started to kind of get lazy and not wanting to add cards. And part of this is like the cynic in me. It's like my deck's probably just gonna get deleted again.
Wait, just for 1 sec though, to go back. So you said you tried to output that one time on Twitter, and then me and Patrick called you out for it. And then what happened to output from then?
That's right. Started 2017 is when I started to work at a Japanese library. Not Japanese. It's a library on campus where there's Japanese books, and the boss was Japanese. And so I had my interview in Japanese there. And I knew at this point my Japanese was not perfect, but I could tell when I made a mistake, and the boss also like would correct me if I made certain mistakes, and I made sure not to talk too much. But basically I used it as an opportunity to learn. I mean, it was a Japanese library, so there was books there, and I used it as an opportunity to learn what the boss was talking about, because she was always on the phone with other Japanese people.
And this is how much time had passed at that point since the first time we told you to not output?
6 months. But I wasn't outputting that much with this person. It was like it was very slow. It was very calculated, like output that I knew was right, and then if I didn't know how to say something, I'd say it in English to her.
So would you say that it was this period where you kind of first learned how to output correctly?
Yeah, I'd say that was it. Like, and at this time I also learned how to properly like talk to people that are older than you, and like speak a little more like softly, like nicely towards people. Because up until this point, like if you're reading a lot of manga, watching a lot of anime, you're gonna get like yaruze. It's not how people talk. So I learned that, and she did help me a lot. She was very, very nice. She spoke. I made sure to tell her to speak regular Japanese to me, so I knew that I could understand adult Japanese when she was speaking to me normally. So that was really helpful. In end of 2017, I went to Japan. I'm in Japan right now, and that's where I really got my first taste of good output, like really good output towards college kids my age.
So when you first arrived in Japan, how much were you understanding, and then tell us more about the details of your experience outputting.
Okay, so in Japan, I mean, like on the airplane in the airport, and like going through, I understood, everything. I went through customs 100% by myself. I was able to understand what they were asking me. I was able to respond. And when he got to Japan, my host family came and met me, and I had no problem talking to them whatsoever. They explained to me all the rules of the house, blah blah blah. No issue. Got to the school, and there was an orientation, which was all in Japanese. They had an English translator, but I understood all the Japanese perfectly fine. I was able to talk with the teachers just fine, and then make friends fine. There's still some holes in the Japanese. There's things I can't talk about, and sometimes I have trouble doing like more. Like, I'm better at explaining abstract concepts, because if you read a lot of books, you'll get a lot of abstract concepts. But explaining stuff like like flicking your wrist or twitching your nose. Those things that, like explaining what's right in front of you, those were a little bit harder for me to do. But over the course of the 4 months, like since the classes we had here they're not very good compared to like what AJAT is going to offer you. I tested into the highest class that they have here, and this is not like, I'm not trying to brag because this is aimed towards Gaijin, right? So
yeah,
it's under the assumption that you're going to suck. So as soon as you stop sucking, that's their highest level, right? Is stopping sucking. When in reality, like my 8-year-old host brother is better Japanese than I am, but that doesn't mean anything because I'm a Gaijin to them. So I tested on the highest level, and I kept a list of all the new words I learned in class, and that list accumulated to 5 at the end of the semester. So I basically just use this time as to immerse and to talk with Japanese people, to really learn their like body language, the language of the like culture, like what do they say in these certain situations? Why do they say these things? And
so would you say that when you walked off the plane in Japan, you were already fluent?
Like fluent is a vague word, but I didn't.
Yeah.
I wasn't.
I'm trolling
you,
but
yeah, I wasn't struggling. Like it wasn't a struggle.
And how long had you been AJetting at this point?
When I got off the plane, like 2 years and like 2 years and 7 months, 2 years and 8 months or 6 months or whatever.
So it sounds kind of similar to my journey, where I spent a lot of time immersing. Outputting wasn't really on my radar. I had some experiences here and there, but then a time came where I was put in a situation where it was time to output, and it was there for the most part.
Yeah. I was kind of nervous when I first came to Japan because I was like, what if my output isn't, good enough? I mean, like, I'm already here. Although inputting is the way to get better, I don't want to spend all my time in Japan inputting. And I got here, and my output was just fine. And a lot of the time I used to input here, I also used it to practice a little bit of output, because I think practicing some output is important. And just surrounding yourself with Japanese friends was a huge help. Although you don't need people to learn a language, at the end of the day, the goal of language is to communicate with other natives. And that's really an only experience you really can't perfectly emulate it. So although you don't need people to get good, I think you need people to get to the next level. You don't need people to stop sucking, but you definitely need people, and preferably face-to-face. Scotchan is a great resource. I didn't use it, but it's a fine resource. But I think you need like real people, like face-to-face talking to really get like the experience of what it's like to talk to a Japanese person. So these 4 months, I think, have really been they're really helpful for my growth. I was able to practice my output, get good input, and it also put me in a lot of situations that allowed me to see the holes in my Japanese, ketten. Namely, I have them down here. Food.
Oh yeah, God. No, I still suck at that.
Food is a huge deal. And then this actually happened today. I went to the Kuyakusho ward office where I had to change I had moved out of my host family's house to the dorm, so I had to change my Zairyu Kado residence card, and I had to change my insurance, and that went fine, but there were some things that were kind of like hazy. Like what should I exactly write here? Like I know what they're trying to say, but I don't know the exact way that I should like write this or explain this. So I just asked the lady, and she explained it fine to me. So like doing the different things that an adult would do in Japan is a good way to see like what are your weak points. Do you really understand what's being said to you here? Like when I went to buy my train pass, like what was the word? Oh, kukan. I know the word for kukan, but I never seen it used in like this context of this line of stations and this line of, and so now I realize, this can be used in this context, and so it was a really good way for me to get better that way. But I feel like that the getting better in that way is only possible if you have a really good base of the language in the first place.
Yeah, definitely.
So the people who are in the lower levels of Japanese, they're just going to be like, what? But if you're at the higher level, you can kind of, or you can infer from context and learn that way, which is really helpful.
You have a lot of infrastructure already in place to be able to absorb those type of things in real time.
And
what type of reactions do you get from Japanese people when you first meet them, and even from the people that know you pretty well?
if it's someone in a shop, they're happy that you speak any Japanese because most like a lot of foreigners walk in, they speak no Japanese, and so they'll just be like, "Jouzu desu ne," and every time they say that, I die a little bit inside because it's like it's like the most common reaction. But I just like I cancel and I'm like, nah, I'm not the good. And in the beginning, when a Japanese person was like, "You're so good," and I'm like, "Nah, I'm not that good." On the inside, I was thinking, "But I really am." And now I actually realize like, it's not fake humbleness anymore. It's real. Like I'm like, no, I'm not. Like you actually don't realize how good you are at your language and like
Yes,
how good natives are.
Tell me about how like the process of what led you to this realization, because I know I talked to you a few months ago and you were pretty cocky because it seemed like it kind of went to your head, all that Jozu desu ne.
I was not cocky. Okay, the reason I kind of am ashamed about that. The reason that went to my head is because out of all the exchange students that came to the school I'm at, I was the best one, and that's not even to be cocky. It was just I'm the only one that really put in the hours, that really cared, and so it was obvious even to Japanese people. Like Japanese people usually they just have two modes. It's like you can either do Japanese or you can't, and so all the people who can do Japanese kind of get lumped in this one group. But I was somehow able to get out of that group into a different like bekkaku. Like that's what the Japanese people said, and that's what really got to my head.
Yeah.
So then, what really made me realize how like not good I was some mixed interactions with you, someone who's better than me, and you and Patrick.
What kind of stuff did we tell you?
Well, just watching your introduction video, and okay, actually, it wasn't anything you said directly. Although you said like toitsei ga nai like kitsui when I was talking to you. That kind of hurt my feelings, by the way.
Sorry.
But I showed your introduction video to some of my Japanese friends, and they're like, wow, and I'm like, what do you think? And they're like, I didn't think there could be someone better than you, Nick. I'm like, fuck. There's a clear there's a clear enough difference between my Japanese and your Japanese. So I was like, well, it's time to like kind of wake the fuck up. I wasn't like slacking, but I kind of like woke up. I was like, well, there's so much to go. And then from that, it was just kind of like one thing after another. I was like, well, natives are just actually so amazing.
Yeah. Well, once the flip switch and you start to view it from that lens of, well, how am I compared to a native speaker? Then it becomes more and more obvious how huge a gap there is.
So that interaction with my friend really made me realize like, okay, so I'm Mijuku, and Matt, I talked to Matt, and he says that he still sucks compared to native speakers. So let's zoom out and view this.
Yeah.
And wow, I really do suck in the grand scheme of things. So then from that point on, every time someone complimented my Japanese, it was legitimate humbleness. I was like, no.
I think I recall telling you that when you get really good, Japanese people don't really compliment you because it just seems so atarimae that you can speak it, and that's the real thing. And I felt like something kind of clicked with you when I said that.
Mm-hmm. Now, since then, I've only like there's only been like 2 Japanese people who have like legitimately said it feels similar to speaking to a Japanese person. Not exactly, but really similar, and that's I think the highest form of complimenting.
Yeah,
it really feels like they're speaking to a Japanese person. I mean, obviously they're going to look at my face and feel some iwakan.
Yeah, there's a bias for that for sure,
but other than that, I think that really clicked with me. So right now I'm in like I don't know, like just, my satori just hiraita, and I'm on this like energy high. I'm like, yeah, dude, Japanese is so awesome. There's so much deeper.
So oku ga fukai, right?
Yeah. There's shit to do, like
so much shit to do.
Yeah, it's like I'm never bored. I wasn't bored like in the past, but I was like, oh, okay, just another day of doing this, and this. But now I'm just like, I get to do this, and I'm getting closer to this native level.
Yeah. Now yarigai ga aru.
Yes, it's so much. It's very much worth in my mind, and so I think like you can understand with your head, like intellectually, that like, I'm not as good as a native, but then actually like jikkan, like, you really, it's like
a visceral hit.
These guys are so good at Japanese, god damn it! And like every time you say that to a Japanese person, they kind of laugh. It's like like 上手ですね。いや、君の足元には呼ばないよ. And it's like they're like 当たり前だろ. And then,
Yeah,
to me,
yeah.
it's just like, but that's where I want to be.
Yeah,
you know?
it's like, but why is it atarimae?
Yeah, it's like
Why
that's where
do
I want
you
to
think
be.
that's so? Yeah, it's as why can't that gap be closed?
It gets a laugh out of them, but like after the laugh, it's just like, yeah, but I mean, like, that's what I want to do, man.
本気なんですけど.
Yeah. So I'm really happy right now. I'm really enjoying. I have 6 months left in Japan. My major is electrical engineering, same as Patrick. But I purposely took this year to go to Japan just to really see if I enjoyed the culture as much as I thought I did, and if it was as worth as much as I thought it was, and it definitely is. And I really have great senpais like Matt and Patrick to thank for my growth on the journey. So
yeah, so you're like the ideal AJAT success story.
I'm a very good. Patrick told me I was a very good kohai.
You take criticism and advice pretty well, so I think that's really crucial.
Really, and this is also like a side. It's nothing to do with AJAT, but like we also talked a lot about meditation. Which,
yeah.
I guess it does. I mean, it really did. I think help my AJATing. Just talking more about like no self, and I think that's kind of like not what this interview is about, but.
No, but actually, I think it's really interesting you bring that up, because since Japanese culture is so tied to the language, becoming a Japanese person is really crucial if you want to speak Japanese like a Japanese person. And a lot of the times, if you grow up in the West, your ego gets in the way of that,
Yeah.
Because you have all these different values that you just can't let go of. But when you can embrace no self, that's actually a big step in the direction of being able to be Japanese when you need to, because you're not American or Japanese.
And a lot of times, in like conversation, the subject is omitted from Japanese, and so you kind of have to assume what they're talking about, like what the subject is. And for some reason, I've noticed this in the beginning. Sometimes it could be either one, like the subject. If there's two subject A and subject B, and they omit it, either one seems plausible. And in my mind, I was like, well, which one is it? I like thinking, and after like a little bit more, they talk a little bit more, it becomes obvious which one it is. But the Japanese people never seem to have a question. They just always knew which one it is. Like they knew the implication of which subject was being talked about, and I think that's such a deep cultural level.
Yeah,
really important. Like Moku no Ryokai, like they just know what's being talked about.
They don't need there's different assumptions about just the whole way they view reality is different.
Yeah,
so
it's very important. But it's
so
also
many things are implied and assumed.
So it was also very very interesting. I do like talking with Japanese people. I think they have, since they do have such a vastly different worldview than most Westerners. It's and like trying to explain to them about the whole AJAT thing is also kind of interesting.
Yeah, how does that normally go down?
Actually, there's one girl who is actually doing it. I don't know how it's working out for her.
How do you normally explain it when you how did you frame it?
Well, first of all, I usually brought up the input hypothesis Wikipedia article and
in Japanese, input the kasetsu.
Input the kasetsu. And I mean, I've read that article so many times, so I can actually talk about it fairly well in Japanese. But I bring it up and I show them Katz's video and I show them your video, and I explain the important thing is to get input, not output, and that eventually you'll just be able to do it. And they're like, why? And I'm like, I don't know. It's just how it works. And I'm like me speaking Japanese is enough proof for them, and they know it works. But at the end of the day, a lot of people don't want to put it into action.
They don't actually care enough.
I met one Japanese person who is actually putting it into action right now, and I don't know how well she's doing it. But I have met, and other than that, there's no Japanese person here I've met who really cares that much about learning English.
Yeah, saying they want to learn English is mostly lip service. They don't really. If there was a button they could press and be fluent, they definitely press it. But they don't.
Oh yeah.
They're not willing to They don't want it badly enough to actually do work.
It feels like learning English is more of a status symbol to them. Because at the college I'm at, there's an Eibe Gakka, and everyone there learns English, but no one really gives a shit. They're just we're studying English, so it's kind of cool. But everyone else, everyone who's studying Chinese or Indonesian or whatever, they actually give a shit and really try hard to get good at their language, because it's not a status symbol. That's what I've noticed is how Japanese people treat English.
Interesting.
So sort of unfortunate in a way, because like I've had so many Japanese people be like "Eigo oshiete," like I've had
that can get annoying.
Like 20 times, dude. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's hard not to cringe after you've put in so much time to actually get good at a language.
Yeah.
But tell me a little bit more about meditation and your history with that.
Oh yeah, I actually meditated before I started doing AJAT. But I mean, like,
how'd you first get into it?
It wasn't very hardcore. I actually just one day was like, you hear a lot about meditation in books and movies or whatever, but I really didn't know what it was, what the point was. And I looked it up, and I found this one site that just recommended Anapanasati. And so I just did that for a couple of years, and then I kind of toned it down when I got into later high school and college because I got really busy.
You said you were practicing multiple hours a day at one point, right?
Yeah, that's right. And I think before in 2014, I was practicing like 2 or 3 hours a day. I do it in an hour and a half in the morning, hour and a half at night, or like in the evening.
How was that affecting your daily life?
And it was amazing. I didn't realize it at the time, because at the time I wasn't really caring about the effects of meditation. I wanted a more calmer mind state, but it also gave you much more clarity of mind, the ability to focus on a single thing with intense vigor, and I severely toned it down during when I started AJAT to like 20 minutes a day, 30 minutes a day, and then it slowly started to die down more and more and more until I saw your video on meditation, and I'm like, hey, everything he's saying, it makes sense. But then there's the other level, not just like physical benefits, but then there's I don't want to say spiritual, but like the insight you get from meditation is also really important.
Perspective, maybe you could say.
And recently, I didn't tell you this earlier, but I feel like I'm not I don't have 100% grasp on like no self, but definitely the grip is like getting tighter. I should say like the understanding is slowly getting deeper. It's not just like 100 or 0 to me. It feels like the insight slowly comes in like waves, and I feel like I'm hitting like a wave right now of the insight of just different things about my life, and it's really, really helpful.
Do you have like moments in your daily life where maybe just moments where you can kind of see what it really means, like maybe when you see your thoughts arise really clearly? Or
there was like there's the one thing I noticed is there's certain like stimuli, usually like words, that when they're said, an immediate reaction arises within me, and I've noticed that for a long time. Like I can notice it, but the other day something was said. What was it? I forget exactly. It was something dealing with Japanese, and oh yes, it was 2 people were talking about studying Japanese, and they're like, I really recommend this textbook after Genki 2. Well, I thought this textbook was helpful, and usually when that type of conversation is being had, the immediate like arising within me is like not a sense of superiority, but it's like I want to go tell them about AJAT. Like I want to go explain, like red pill them.
Yeah.
Like this is not. You shouldn't be like, what the fuck is Tobita? Like this is get a novel, get anime, get something. But immediately I just realized like this is nothing to. How do I explain this? That feeling didn't arise like at all, and just because I felt like it didn't. I can't really explain it to them because there's really no like. It just they are how they are, and that's completely fine.
Yeah, you can't change them.
And it's something, and I didn't feel any need to try and like change something around me. It just felt like the way it is, and I was just like at peace. I didn't even care. And I felt like that's an effect of meditation.
Yeah, awesome.
Things that normally affect you just don't affect you anymore.
And so, what about more directly related to your studies? How did they affect your Japanese studies? The practice.
Yeah, it allowed me to focus really clearly on like making cards, studying cards, and like immersing. When you immerse in something, being fully engrossed in it, like a flow state, is obviously the optimal way to watch like an anime or read a book. And meditating makes it easier to attain that state of like focus and calmness. And it also, when you like, if you're gonna get good at Japanese, you're obviously gonna talk to Japanese people. So that means you're going to have to go through a whole like wall of people who are just going to say "Joel's this ne, Joel's this ne," and they're not going to correct any of your mistakes because to them you're already so much better than all the gaijin that it doesn't matter. However, you're going to eventually reach the real Japanese people who care and who will actually correct your mistakes. And I'm sure you've met a couple of those people who correct your mistakes ruthlessly. And I have as well. In the beginning, it kind of hurts because you're not used to Japanese people correcting your mistakes like they do.
Yeah, it's a big ego hit for sure.
Yeah. And that ego hit is completely, like, it's really softened if you meditate because you realize, like my Japanese ability is not me. So there's no reason to feel hurt. Your Japanese ability is not you because you don't really, like, you're not really there. It's just your Japanese ability is there. And your Japanese ability is being critiqued. So and that's just completely separate of you. So there's no reason for you to be, like,
suffering due to that,
upset about it. It's just you said like, a wrong thing was said or a wrong thing was written, something unnatural, and a native is just telling you how it is.
And you couldn't have known, there was no way for you to know that it was incorrect when you think about all the causes and conditions that led you up to the present moment.
Yeah. So there's no reason to, suffer for that.
Yeah, I think that's really important.
That was a big help for meditation.
And even that, I experienced that kind of, the benefit from that insight internally even, because I used to criticize myself just whenever I didn't understand something internally.
Oh, yeah. Like, I've been studying for X years, why don't I understand this?
Yeah. And then I'd waste mental time and effort trying to come up with a story that would justify me not understanding something instead of just paying attention to what was said next.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Cool. Well, do you have any advice for upcoming age-outers?
Yes. Finish RTK first. My God, that is a huge thing. Finish RTK first. I would say there's a very dangerous slope, but don't completely alienate your friends. I think that's a really important one. Like, just social, like, as being like a healthy person, don't completely alienate your friends, but know how to take space so that you can actually get your studying done.
Try to have
a clear like path ahead of you, like what you want to do with Japanese, because eventually you're going to get to a point where you're going to need to probably go into, like, a specialty in Japanese. If you want to work here or do something, then you're going to need to learn how to write. And depending on what you want to do, you might need to learn how to write perfect business emails, which is a completely whole different sphere of something that needs its own studying. You might want to study classical Japanese, like, at grad school here. It just depends what you want to do. Try and have a clear, focused path in the beginning, and that path can change, but just make sure you kind of walk along it. I think it's a really big help to have kind of like a big picture for yourself, like the whole, like, where the puzzle pieces all fit in. And then I would say, in terms of Anki cards, really don't focus on the number, like, how many are you doing a day? Like, that's not really important. Just, like, 10, 15 is perfectly fine. In fact, in my opinion, 10 is probably the perfect number because the reviews never get too much, it's not too hard to make, but you're still making good progress. It's like the sweet spot. 10, 15 is, like, perfect sweet spot, in my personal opinion. And then, what else? Just relax and have fun, I guess.
Cool.
Just relax and have fun.
And then, you have any of your media recommendations?
Yes, I do. Hold on, let me pull this up. For anime, I definitely recommend the Tatami Galaxy or Yojo Shinwa Daike.
Yeah.
Fate Stay Night, the Unlimited Blade Works one. That's really good. Boku dake ga inai machi. I think in English it's called, like, Erased or something. And then Ping Pong the animation.
I like that one.
Ping Pong that's a good. And then for books, anything by Morimi Tomiko. Yoru wa midikashi aruke yo otome. Yojo Hanshin wa Taike. Bijo to Takebayashi. And then for radio shows, Oodori no Oru Naito Nippon. And I like Manzai as well. My favorite Manzai combis are Sand Ichi Man.
Oh, they're really funny.
Oldori and Kaまいたち. Kaまいたち, really good. And for variety shows, I don't really watch, like, set variety shows. I just kind of watch whatever's posted on YouTube. So.
Cool. Awesome. Well, thanks a lot. Just lastly, I want to ask you, just because I know this is the thing everyone wants to hear. Me and you know it's not that important, but just for the sake of the viewers, what date would you put on for how long it took you to reach fluency? when you first started?
2.5 years. 2.5.
There you have it, folks. Awesome. Well, this was a really fun hour. I think this was really insightful. Thank you so much for joining me and showing the masses that AJAT really works.
Oh, yes, it does really work. Thank you so much. I hope all your patrons, you're all really lucky. This guy's amazing. Continue being his patron. I will confirm that it's very good.
Azaz.
He's a very good guy. Azaz. All right. You're wonderful. You're a wonderful man. Thank you very much.
Wow, I'm so flustered. Well, thanks for tuning in, folks. See you next time.